I'm going to introduce the panelists in the order in which they're going to speak, and then they're going to get up and speak. I've got little time cards, keep them strictly on time, and then we'll open up the Q&A. So the first speaker tonight is Jarrett Clark, who I kind of feel needs no introduction at the moment, but I will introduce him anyways. He is the president of the Canadian Union of Public Employees Local 2424, representing over 800 administrative, technical, and library staff at Carleton University. As you know, CUPE 2424 is currently striking over the issue of bargaining rights and protections around pensions. Our next speaker will be Kevin Scarrett. Kevin Scarrett is a senior research officer at CUPE National, and he is also a Carleton grad. He has his MA from political economy from, should I name the year? Sure. 1994. He's also the co-editor of a newly published research volume that's called The Contradictions of Pension Fund Capitalism with Cornell Press. Looks fabulous. He'll be doing some book launches over the coming months. And he'll be speaking to us tonight about the issue of pensions more broadly. And our third speaker is Nancy Parker. She is currently retired from a career that focused on pensions at many levels, but now she is an active organizer of the Ottawa Committee for Pension Security. It's a recently formed grassroots organization that is dedicated to defending and improving pension security for everyone. And she's also involved with the Ottawa Health Coalition and Solidarity Ottawa. So please join me in welcoming our three panelists.
We've bargained hard, and we've tried to find some middle ground with the employer. We've found all kinds of creative solutions with Kevin's help, based on his vast knowledge and experience across all kinds of pensions and collective agreements across the sector. And we've tried a whole bunch of different approaches, trying to address the things that the university has said they need or that they are concerned about. And we've, in many ways, said, fine, sure, we understand a lot of what you're saying. Let's try to enshrine those things in our collective agreement. And they have not been at all receptive to that. Essentially, you know, they would return proposals sort of dressed up differently, but effectively trying to remove all bargaining rights and protections around a pension plan. Spirits are high. Again, our members understand the significance of this issue, and they're not wavering. We're not going anywhere until the employer comes back to the table and we reach a negotiated settlement.
This situation really, I think, is ridiculous. There is no good reason for this university to have forced these workers out onto picket lines. When you think about it, what is the rationale that they've given? What is their explanation? They've actually acknowledged the funding picture in their pension plan has actually been improving over the last several years, which is true in other plans as well. That means their actual employer costs have been coming down and are projected to continue coming down. It's very unusual in my experience to have that improving situation, to have an employer come into collective bargaining and say, we are proposing that you remove certain collective agreement protections, not because we have any intention of making changes, but we just don't want that in your contract. It's a fundamental concession that they're seeking without any rationale whatsoever. Workers who have decent pensions, and I'll underline, that is a shrinking population. It was never a majority. It's now probably about a third or less. I think the number of people with defined benefit, the secure defined benefit type pension, is now, I think, less than 30%, and it is in a long-term decline. This is relating to the larger process. What are we seeing? We're seeing employers, particularly in the private sector, close their defined benefit plan and replace it with basically a savings scheme that has no security, no formula where you don't know what you're going to get out of it. Other proposals, get rid of indexation. So for people that have a defined benefit plan, they start receiving a certain pension. It is traditional to have some kind of indexation, some protection against inflation. So it goes up a little bit every year in some relation with the consumer price index. That has been cut, attacked, eroded, and in many cases eliminated. Pushing some of the employer cost of the pension over to members, having members contribute more and more. That is also happening, especially in the university sector. Making some benefit promises uncertain. not guaranteed anymore, like indexation. Eliminating or reducing the access that people have to early retirement provisions. So very common to have a standard age around age 65 to retire at, but have some kind of provision where you can go before that under a certain formula with a certain reduction. What they've been doing is increasing those reductions, making early retirement unaffordable or impossible. And then maybe the most serious and dramatic example of a tax on pensions is what we call the straight-out two-tier model, where an employer will say, we're going to, and this is for labor relations and for trade unions, this is really serious for us all to think through. What this is saying is employers will say to the union, we don't like this pension plan anymore, we don't like its costs, we don't like the fact that we face certain risks, but tell you what, we will protect you in the current workforce. You'll have a defined benefit plan, we'll protect that, but newly hired workers, basically young workers, we'll put them in something different. Now you may have heard the president of Carleton saying, oh, we don't know what the union is worried about. Trust us. We assure you that we have no intention of making any negative changes to your pension plan. And so it should be no problem for us to just, take this language out of your contract and we'll go on a just trust us basis.
He's such a nice guy, Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. We should trust him.
He's such a nice guy.
Exactly.
For whatever reason, they don't want to support people having pensions. It's probably because they don't have them themselves. I think it's probably because maybe they don't really know what's lying ahead for them. And I think the lack of what our retirement income system actually looks like and what you might get in the future, if you actually knew what that is, you might tend to support the issue a little bit more. This is not just for active workers. This is for retirees as well. So you left the workplace thinking that you had paid for your pension. It's promised, it's in law, and now they want to change that law and remove that guarantee. What our retirement income system provides us right now, like the average CPP payment for someone who retires at age 65 is just a little bit over $640 a month. Right now, the old age security that comes out that you're entitled to if you've been here and met the residency requirements pays over a little bit more than $580 a month. How can we survive?
Good pensions for all. And one of the things I didn't say at the beginning of my comments, but I try to, especially in a situation like this, is that, trade unions are accused of being selfish and only caring about our own members, and we're just going to bargain for our own people and everybody else, look after themselves. That's actually not the case. Trade unions were at the forefront, most recently, of the battle to try to expand the Canada Pension Plan for all workers. But notwithstanding that, we didn't succeed in the goal of doubling that. And so, as Nancy was suggesting, the real goal, really, we've got to wrap our minds around how do we engage in a struggle that's actually going to extend meaningful pension protection for all workers. Like the number of so-called community representatives who have been named to the Board of Governors, they're really business people, most of them. I mean, these kinds of boards have become, I would say, business associations, with a few other people thrown in. And if you think about it, if you add it together with the larger picture of budgetary compression, a group that's going to be increasing tuition for students, downgrading the teaching that's available to deliver education in a public institution, who do you want to actually oversee that kind of austerity, like transmitting what happens provincially and federally down to an institution like this? You get local business people that view the world in a certain way. What's in our collective agreements really matters, because if it's not there, and I kind of say this particularly to the CUASA colleagues, the faculty colleagues at Carleton, at Carleton, we have all, you guys, we all have inherited an unusual situation where the one union on campus that has some protection against unilateral action is CUPE 2424. And the faculty doesn't have it. So, and I want to say, in full solidarity, I think we all should have those kinds of protections, like is very commonly the case at other campuses. Carleton is a strange exception, and I think we've got to challenge that exception and, establish strong protections for everyone, not just 2424, all university workers.
This is really a class issue, and for us, if I have $1 that I'm able to put aside for my retirement, I'd like to have a guarantee attached to it. And, when you put your money in a pension plan, it's a collective. You'll get that pension for life. You're protected by pension law. Well, even in my own house, I'm the only person that has a pension plan. My husband worked all his life, and he never was employed in a place where they had a pension plan. When you think about that, and when you think about, the markets that just exploded on a number of occasions in the past few years, like sometimes people lose 20, 30, 40% of what they've put away for their retirement.
We might hear this from Carleton that pension plans are getting too expensive, defined benefit plans are too expensive, we need to go to something that is, lower risk. Well, here's the interesting thing, lower risk for whom, right? What you're doing when you do that is you're actually moving some amount of risk that is frankly more efficiently organized and structured in a collective vehicle like a defined benefit plan, and you're pushing it onto individuals. They will face the risk. You're not eliminating the risk, you're just pushing it onto individuals. Another point just to tack on, because I think there's a certain amount of confusion about this jargon of defined benefit, defined contribution. What does this mean? Just take a moment to say, we've got a very important defined benefit program in Canada that we call Medicare. The hospital system, right? What do we get from Medicare? It has problems, funding crunch, and so forth. But the basic concept of the Canadian Medicare system is when you need hospital care and the medical services that are provided, you get them. That's the defined benefit. Now you can have a different kind of system. You could have a defined contribution system for healthcare. What instead you would get is, every year there'd be like $1,000 put into an account that you could then use to buy healthcare services later. Now, how many of us would want that kind of model for healthcare, right? It might be more efficient, right, from an employer perspective and from but from the actual delivery, it really is a matter of we need to have, for certain fundamental issues, pensions, healthcare, certain other vital services, we need the security of it. We can't put this in the market, and we certainly don't want to give it over to the financial, the bankers and the mutual fund companies that actually see it as a source of profit.
We can't simply accept wholesale removal of all of that language. And the university may disagree about what it means, but if they don't think it's important, I don't know why they think they need to take it out. And if they want to take it out, we insist upon having something to replace it, some kind of protection, some kind of bargaining rights. So there is very clearly language there. The history of it, we've had it since our very first collective agreement in 1976. It's never been a problem. The stable and well-managed pension plan that Alistair Summerlee likes to talk about has been achieved with that language.
That what's going on here at Carleton is really part of a much broader pattern that we are all going to have to continue strategizing around, movement building around, making links across different fights against this whole austerity agenda. Pensions is a popular target, especially for the right wing, but it takes different forms, tuition increases and cuts to social assistance and any number of other things. So this is a very broad agenda we've got to turn around.
Your point early in your message there about how there's this sort of view that lots of people don't have pensions are eroding, just accept the inevitable future. We've heard that on the picket lines. We've had people shouting at us, well, we don't have a pension. like that's a justification for us to simply walk away and accept the employer's proposal. So, you know, I think about the things Nancy was talking about and Kevin was talking about, you know, the sinister kind of changes that are happening in the pension world and the pension climate that's changing in a very negative way, and how those things start to trickle down. You know, I think we're kind of looking at our fight right now as a way, an opportunity to say, you know, if we can fight for benefits or bargaining rights and protections around our pensions, then maybe that can be a signal to other unions and employee groups that they can do it too, and we can sort of turn the tide a little bit. Yeah, thanks.